Who's buried in Johnny Appleseed's grave? The answer may surprise you today on Indiana Outdoors.
Hello and welcome to Indiana Outdoors. I'm Jill Ditmire.
And I'm Don Van Meter. Today we're in Fort Wayne's Archer Park. People are busy preparing for the Johnny Appleseed Festival held each year in September.
And coming up we're going to speak with co-chair Bridget Kelly, but to start thinking about apples a little bit, we're going to take you to an apple orchard in northern Indiana.
Orchards are really a family affair. The fact that you can be out here, that 3 family generations can be together doing something together, I think is worthwhile.
I'm Bonnie McAfee, and this is my husband David McAfee, and together we own County Line Orchard in Hobart, Indiana.
There's nothing that we do at this orchard that other people can't do. There's just nothing here that we have a patent on. You start an orchard by planting trees.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have trees there, you got to plant them. So we planted 1,300 of them. After a while, I got old and the trees grew, and so we had to sell the fruit. That's how we started.
At the time, I knew there were 3 kinds of apples. I knew there were yellow ones, red ones, and green ones. That was the extent of my knowledge of apples. We are now much more knowledgeable about apples than at that point, fortunately.
We have Gala from New Zealand, which is a wonderful apple. We have Johnny Gold, we have Blushing Gold, we have Macintosh, we have a whole slew of those kind of apples.
A lot of people ask, how did you know what to do? And a lot of it was simply listening to our customers. For example, our customers started saying after about the 2nd year, why don't you have apple cider donuts? And we said, well, we're an apple orchard. Yeah, well, that goes with cider. Why don't you have donuts? Perhaps we should offer donuts. Well, now our donuts we'll stand in line for a long time for a dozen of our donuts.
We started out with a machine that made 50 dozen an hour, and people were standing in line at the end of the day to get donuts, and they were limited to 1 dozen. So we sold that machine, and we bought a machine that does 100 dozen donuts an hour. And now, by the evenings on Saturdays and Sundays, people are standing in line and are limited to 1 dozen donuts that they can purchase. Doing pumpkins is a natural fit-in with the orchard. People are out here, and we planted an acre or 2 to start with. And matter of fact, I remember coming home from my job and going out into the mud-soaked field and grabbing pumpkins and bringing them up on Halloween night, and people were still buying them. And so the next year we planted a little more, and then a little more, and then a little more, and now we do 12 acres of pumpkins, and we build our house. Pumpkins were a natural outcropping of having people here, having kids here. It fits with what we do. And we have a 7-acre corn maze, and we have the American flag blowing in the breeze so that none of the stripes line up, and it's very challenging. And this is the first year we've had a big maze. We've had a lot of fun with the maze, and I expect it to be a standard part of what we do here. I think that the day will come when the maze and pumpkins and donuts will all be somewhat on a par for us. People do not want to go around and crawl around on their hands and knees and work hard on their day off. But to come out and spend some quality time with your family and communicate and pick some apples together and maybe get lost in a maze or see the little kids pet an animal or to have your picture taken in front of a 6-foot-high cornucopia, that's worth doing.
Teachers will tell us when they bring school kids out on field trips that my kids don't get to see grass, they don't get to walk on grass. One year we had a whole bunch of acorns falling from the oak trees. And the teachers said, is it okay if we pick some up? My kids have never seen acorns. It's just things that we take for granted that city kids don't know about.
There was a little kid here yesterday, about 5 years old, bright kid, who was telling me it takes 45 leaves to make an apple, who was telling me about pollination, who who was telling me about the bud underneath the apple, so you should twist it off so you don't take next year's apple. Now, he was a bright kid, but he came here and he sucked that up just like a sponge. People are generations removed from the farm, and you can't go to Grandpa's farm anymore or Uncle's farm anymore, and yet people like to do that. And that is one of the things that we knew, and one of the things that we based what we did on. And so we make it possible to visit the farm. And they can pet the animals, and they can see the animals in a kind of a natural setting. They can take a ride out on a tractor and wagon. They can pick a pumpkin, or they can pick apples, and they can have a day at the farm. And that has worked well for us.
Well, Don, we're about to meet one of the busiest women in Fort Wayne.
Yes.
Here she is. This is Bridget Kelly. You are one of the co-chairs of the Johnny Appleseed Festival.
Yes.
And this is a huge festival, and you're expecting a lot of folks here, as you do and have in many years past.
Yeah, we really do. We pull in an amazing crowd for a two-day festival, anywhere between 250 and 300,000 over the 2 days.
Gosh.
It's always held the third full weekend in September, and we have people that put it on their calendars. They come up from as far as Brownsville, Texas, as far north as Ontario, Canada, just to come down for the festival.
So you have a lot of repeat customers.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
What brings them back? What brings them here?
The festival is unique in that we keep to the time that Johnny Appleseed lived. He lived, predominantly early to mid 1800s. And all the vendors that are selling have to sell products that would have been available back then, made of materials that would have been available back then. The food vendors that are here cooking have to cook over wood or coal. They can't use electricity or propane. There are no generators allowed. So they have a wide variety of foods. We have, corn on the cob cooked over an open fire, and stews, and all different kinds of things. Of course, lots of things with apples in them. And that, and the crafts, and the music, and the children's area, the antique area. We have an Indian encampment. It has a lot of things for everybody.
We were talking as we were coming up here, it's been a long time since we all had our fourth grade Indiana history.
Yes. Right.
Who is Johnny Appleseed, and why should we care about him? Why should we know about him?
Well, Johnny Appleseed, his real name was John Chapman. He was born in 1774 in Leominster, Massachusetts. At a very early age, he set out on his own. He really kind of lived, on the land and traveled west, kept wanting to find the frontier and kept going further and further out. But he helped farmers that were having trouble as far as having cash crops and being able to support themselves. Taught them how to plant and raise and propagate apple trees, the different uses for the apples. He just made such a huge difference to so many of their lives in making them a going concern.
Thank you, Bridget. Thanks for inviting us out today,
thanks so
good
much.
luck again.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here.
This grave marker reminds me of our next story. Indiana Outdoors toured Indianapolis's Crown Hill Cemetery, where you can get a fantastic lesson on early Indianapolis.
Crown Hill Cemetery consists of 555 acres, and we were incorporated in 1863, and at that time we really served as the first city park in Indianapolis, and we believe today that we still serve that purpose. We have more green space than virtually any other venue in the city of Indianapolis, and we invite the community to enjoy the space. Crown Hill is one of a number of cemeteries that were formed in the mid-1800s as part of what is called the American Rural Cemetery Movement. The rural cemetery movement had a very strong basis within the Romantic movement, and so at that time there was a Romantic view of death, and versus what had been prior to that, somewhat a macabre vision of death. Going back to the mid-1800s, people gathered in cemeteries, they picnicked in cemeteries. There's so much here. Some of the natural areas that are undeveloped are beautiful. Some of our memorials are very meaningful in terms of what they say. We are also the host to the Indiana AIDS Memorial, which is a very dramatic monument that certainly serves as a chronicle for the thousands who have been lost to the AIDS epidemic. The anatomical section honors those who have donated their bodies to science. So it's a very significant section and certainly very, very important to our community. The Heroes of Public Safety project started 2 years ago, and it actually began shortly after 9/11. And it was a time where we wanted to honor those in the public safety sector, law enforcement, firefighters, EMTs, and it was at that time that we brought together the leadership of public safety. And the section has developed very nicely and serves our community very well today. The National Cemetery actually is owned by the government, and there are burials that are from every conflict that we have fought in back to the Revolutionary War. So it's virtually filled with history of our military activity in our country since its beginning. The hill, or the crown, is the highest point in Marion County, and it was originally called Strawberry Hill because this was farmland back in the mid-1800s. And it is a fascinating area, and it offers probably the greatest vista of downtown Indianapolis that you would ever find. Probably the most famous burial on the crown is James Whitcomb Riley, and his monument is photographed very frequently. But many of the other civic leaders who have made our city what it is are buried on the crown also. We have one U.S. president, President Benjamin Harrison. We have 3 U.S. vice presidents buried here, 16 mayors of Indianapolis, 12 governors, many, many thousands of both social, civic, and cultural leaders, as well as thousands and thousands of everyday citizens. Every time of the year, Crown Hill is different and offers different vistas. We encourage the community to take advantage of this wonderful park-like space.
Let's go from the serious to the just plain fun.
All right.
Our next story is about a sport you may not have heard much about, bouldering.
Yeah, I've never heard of it, but evidently it's a lot like rock climbing, only you're just trying to conquer boulders, which makes sense, and I guess they're closer to the ground.
It still looks hard to me.
Bouldering is a form of rock climbing where instead of climbing the giant wall, you climb a portion of the wall in 5 or 6 steps. And there's no ropes to help you, you just kind of, you and the wall.
There you go.
People have always bouldered to train, but now people are bouldering more as an end in itself. It's a really good way to train because you're condensing the climbing down to just a few moves. But people find out it's really fun, especially with the commercial bouldering pads. The benefits of rock climbing are fairly diverse. One, on the athletic level, it's a recreational opportunity. You can get out and really exert your body physically. Mentally, you've got a sense of accomplishment once you've accomplished some of your climbing routes. It's exciting. It's definitely an adrenaline rush to be, off the ground. It's not like some of your other sports. There is a little bit of fear involved, and so that'll really puts your mind in a different frame of mind.
Yeah.
Good job.
Nice job.
Some of the basic equipment that beginners should have, if you're bouldering, rock shoes are the most important. The rock shoes give a tremendous advantage on thin, smaller footholds. Then if you're a boulderer, you might look into a bouldering pad after a while. The rock climbing in Indiana is bouldering in the southern part. There's some sandstone near Bloomington that's a little bit taller, and people can top rope, and they actually have some anchors in the rock. Muscatatuck is really the best place in Indiana for rock climbers. It's really accessible. The parking lot's approximately 5 minutes away. There's restroom facilities. In the winter, when the temperatures get cold, most of the rock is in the sun. There's a 200-foot easy traverse that beginners could just climb. Basically, if you go back and forth 400 foot, probably take a half hour or so. I've climbed here for 10 years and I'm still finding new climbing problems all the time. I've got basically 50 projects that I want to eventually figure out, and hopefully a few more advanced climbers will come in and actually push the standards a little bit higher.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Come on. Come on. Come on. Do it.
Bouldering in general has grown in popularity tenfold. Just some of the best climbers in the country are not choosing to climb with ropes. They'd rather just go out and boulder. It's really fast-paced and powerful, and it's a really fun activity. Rock climbing is not as dangerous as a lot of people would think. It is fairly dangerous. It has to do a lot with how much knowledge you have. So if you just go out and try to do something you're not aware of, it's going to be pretty dangerous, just like a driver's license. We carry pads with us. We have spotters when we boulder. As long as you work within your limits, then it's a pretty safe sport. Most beginners get involved in rock climbing nowadays at the pay gyms. They have a couple gyms in Indianapolis, gym in Bloomington.
The indoor gyms offer more of a training situation than the outdoors. The indoor gyms are a great place for beginners to get started. Most climbers begin on the indoor gyms, and once they feel more comfortable with their skills, they move to the outdoors.
It's pretty creative, it's pretty abstract, it's pretty powerful, it's really fun. You use your mental abilities, problem solving on a hard boulder problem. Potentially you may have to try it 50 times to get the specifics down to be able to successfully do a climb. So it's really athletic, it's really gymnastic, and it's fun.
Before we leave you today, we want to share the work of one of our crew members.
Ball State graduate student Sue Aietza was named a fellow in the National Wildlife Federation's Campus Ecology program.
And Sue's project was to make a video about environmental sustainability, and this is her story.
Hi, I'm Sue Aietza with Indiana Outdoors, and I'm here in Muncie, Indiana at Ball State University to take a look at how this university is trying to make its campus more sustainable. But first, let's find out what sustainability really means.
Sustainability, it rests on a balance between economic needs, social needs, and environmental needs in harmony.
Just to take the word apart, sustain and ability. You think of sustain as to endure, to persist for a long duration. Ability is our ability, our capacity to do that. So it's our capacity to endure.
Ball State is one of many campuses that has pledged an enduring commitment to sustainability. As part of their efforts, Ball State started the Greening of the Campus conferences.
One of the things that we decided to do was to have an international Greening of the Campus conference. They gather for about 3 days and look at how their campuses and their institutions are treating environmental issues. So it's largely a sharing of views of what works and what doesn't.
Another one of Ball State's initiatives has been the signing of the Talwar Declaration, a commitment to sustainability for universities and colleges. To date, more than 270 institutions have signed the declaration. The 10th tenet of the Talwar Declaration recommends developing a group of leaders responsible for carrying out the campus's sustainable initiatives. So the Council on the Environment was created.
They meet once a month to set an annual agenda as to what areas we ought to be working on in the area of sustainability, the area of environmental awareness.
Over the last 10 or 12 years, the university has increased the square footage of space that's being used for teaching and learning. But in fact, while the square footage has gone up, the energy use has actually gone down, so it's kind of a double impact.
Besides looking at single areas of consumption, sustainability can also be measured and monitored on a larger scale. By considering all the inputs and outputs of resources and waste, you can model the environmental impact with what is called an ecological footprint.
Ecological footprinting is basically an auditing system. It's an account system that equates the amount of resources a community needs, or an individual for that matter, to sustain its present lifestyle, his or her or the community's present lifestyle. And that's equated into the number of acres that it takes to produce the resources to keep the community going.
When we look down at where we're standing or where we've trod, we can see that footprint in the snow or in the mud. Well, that's a good metaphor in a way for us to think about how we have our impacts on the broader earth.
So what is Ball State University doing to reduce its ecological footprint? Most recently, the university invested in 3 hybrid cars.
We have a few hybrid vehicles, so we get double the mileage that we used to get with the cars they replace. We have less atmospheric impact as well, because those particular vehicles are much more clean in the way they burn the fuel.
Ball State also uses B20, or biodiesel fuel, for most of its fleet of vehicles, including shuttles and buses around campus. Biodiesel fuel significantly reduces emissions into the atmosphere.
However they choose to get around campus, students and faculty can enjoy the extensive landscaping that Ball State has to offer.
We have a river birch, which is native to Indiana, but behind me we have a Norway spruce, which is not native. Both do extremely well here. Why not use the best plant that takes the fewest amount of inputs? We've raised the height of our mowers from 2.5 to 3.5 inches. This increases the root zone of the plant, makes it more drought tolerant, allows us to be on it only once a week. We can leave the clippings on the grass. It reduces the amount of fertilizer we have to put down. It shades out weeds, so we use less herbicides than we've used before. It just makes the plant a healthier plant. We have a compost operation that we use, and we generate between 3,000 and 5,000 cubic yards of compost a year, all of which we use back into the landscape.
Besides seeing how Ball State manages its outdoor resources, let's take a look at the sustainable efforts indoors.
During the construction of Ball State's new Arts and Journalism building, they used bamboo flooring and paneling as often as possible. The advantage of bamboo is that it's an inexpensive, fast-growing plant, which makes it a highly renewable resource. The floor of the bookstore is made of a highly renewable wood called jarrah wood from Australia. Even the bathroom floors in the Arts and Journalism building are made of recycled materials, including recycled glass. The university has also installed compact fluorescent lights throughout the building. These produce the same amount of light and consume less energy. All of the bulletin boards in the Arts and Journalism building are made of the fabric constructed of recycled materials.
We're also experimenting with e-books, electronic textbooks that can hold many, many volumes in one textbook.
Ball State University is not just concerned about hitting the books. Part of their long-term commitment is reaching out to the Muncie community.
We can't be successful sustainably on this university unless we make the connection with the community. And so outreach to other community members and bringing them into what we do is essential.
Many people across the country are hesitant about sustainability because of the cost.
Sustainability in terms of initial cost can come at a high price, but I think when you cost it out over a longer period of time, it really can be much more economical.
Awareness is more important. You would get more people becoming involved if they are aware of, let's say, how much water they use, how much paper they waste, how much energy they're using by forgetting to turn the light off in their room.
To increase awareness of sustainability on campus, a group called Students for a Sustainable Campus was formed.
We're a student-based group trying to address sustainability issues on campus. We have a lot of non-financial support coming from faculty members and the administration, but our funding right now comes out of the pockets of our members.
Students can also get funding from outside sources to increase awareness about sustainability on campus. The National Wildlife Federation's Campus Ecology program is one such resource.
With sustainability, it's important to understand that the returns and benefits won't be visible immediately.
It's just a matter of changing incrementally small ways of how we do things.
It's important for citizens to work even harder than we may have in the previous few years to make sure that what we see around us continues for our children and our grandchildren.
I like, though, the way that architect William McDonough put it when somebody asked him, well, how long will sustainability take? And his answer was, forever. That's the point.
Sue's video is being requested from colleges, campuses all over the country.
Wow, that's great.
Congratulations, Sue.
And thank you to the folks here at the Johnny Appleseed Festival. We sure had a nice time today, didn't we? Yeah. And one thing we want to clear up, though, this is the Johnny Appleseed grave site. He's not actually buried here, but they say his spirit is here in the festival.
And I feel it.
Yeah. Well, that does it for Indiana Outdoors. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody. You know, I have a hankering for apples.
We might be able to find some here.
I bet you're right.
Let's go.